Imagine, for a moment, being born in a place where, from the very beginning, you're taught that your life, your body, and your future aren't truly yours. A world where your fate is decided not by your own choices, but by men sitting cross-legged on a woven mat, striking deals over your destiny. A world where saying no isn't even an option, and obedience isn't just expected, it's demanded, under threat of unimaginable consequences. This is the harsh reality for countless young girls in Afghanistan, trapped in a web of ancient customs, religious interpretations, and a suffocating code of honor that weighs heavier than their dreams ever could. But why, in Afghanistan, is it still so common for a girl to be forced into marriage with a man old enough to be her grandfather? What drives families to continue this cycle, generation after generation? And most importantly, could there still be hope for these women in a world that claims to have progressed? Stay with me, because what you're about to uncover is both shocking and eye-opening. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Secret Journeys, your passport to exploring the world's most intriguing corners without spending a dime. To understand how this practice became so deeply rooted, we need to travel far back in time. Afghanistan isn't just a country on a map. It's a complex tapestry of tribes, clans, and tight-knit communities where loyalty to family and tribe has always overshadowed individual freedom. In this patriarchal system, a family's reputation rests squarely on the purity and compliance of its daughters. Marriage here isn't a romantic story, it's a transaction. It's a calculated move to secure alliances, boost the family's status, strengthen their economic position, and, above all, safeguard that fragile notion of honor. And that's where the figure of the older husband comes into play. For many traditional Afghan families, an older man symbolizes security, wisdom, financial stability, and social respectability. A younger suitor, in contrast, is seen as inexperienced, unreliable, and lacking resources. So from their perspective, marrying off a daughter to a man with age and wealth isn't just acceptable, it's viewed as the best possible outcome. He owns land, livestock, money, business connections. He can afford to pay a higher bride price, offer protection, and ensure that his wife never faces hunger. And speaking of the bride price, this is a critical element we can't overlook. In Afghanistan, the bride price, known as mahr or walwar, isn't a mere gesture of goodwill. It's a significant sum of money, valuable goods, jewelry, or even livestock, paid by the groom's family to the bride's family. And in impoverished rural areas where survival is a daily struggle, this bride price can mean the difference between putting food on the table or going without. The older the man, the deeper his pockets. And the younger and untouched the girl, the higher her perceived worth. It's heartbreaking to say, but many families see their daughters as their greatest treasure, a treasure that can be traded to secure the family's survival. That's why it's not uncommon for a girl to be promised to a man as soon as she turns 10, 12, sometimes even at 8 years old. And once she reaches puberty, she's deemed ready for marriage. This isn't just about tradition, it's also justified by the most conservative interpretations of religion, where a girl is considered legally eligible for marriage once she's biologically matured. In Afghanistan, where civil law intertwines with Sharia law, the family's consent carries far more weight than the girl's own wishes. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Secret Journeys, where we bring you closer to hidden stories and exotic destinations every week. Now picture the terror of a teenage girl being told, "Tomorrow is your wedding day." No chance to object. No time to process what's happening. And if she dares to resist, the pressure comes crashing down. First, emotional manipulation. He's going to take care of you. How can you refuse such a good man? You're bringing shame upon us. Then, restrictions tighten. She's forbidden from going outside, from going to school, from seeing her friends. And if she continues to rebel, the threats escalate. Gossip starts spreading through the neighborhood. Religious leaders step in. The family is accused of losing control over their daughter. And when the social pressure reaches its peak, the family's decisions turn even more extreme. Some girls are physically dragged to their wedding ceremonies, forced into marriage against their will. Others are drugged and wake up already wed. And in the most chilling cases, the threats extend beyond the girl herself. If you don't accept, your brother will pay the price. But here's the cruelest truth. Marriage isn't the end of the nightmare, it's the beginning. For many of these girls, marriage marks the start of a life defined by submission. They don't just lose their childhood. They lose their right to study, to work, to make choices about their own bodies. In countless villages, a married woman becomes invisible to the outside world, confined within the walls of her husband's home. If he dies, she falls under the control of his family. And if she tries to escape, she risks everything, even her life. Yet, even in the midst of such darkness, glimmers of hope emerge. In Afghanistan's larger cities, a growing number of families are beginning to question these practices. Human rights organizations are fighting to outlaw child and forced marriages. And within Afghanistan itself, courageous women are defying the system. Activists, lawyers, teachers risking everything to educate young girls, to build secret shelters, to give them a voice. But the road ahead is long and uncertain. The return of the Taliban in 2021 has tightened restrictions once again. Schools for girls have been shut down. Women are banned from working in many professions. The burqa has been made mandatory once more. And while the international community demands change, the harsh reality in rural regions remains. Girls are still seen as their family's property, and early marriage is still the norm. So I leave you with a question. What does freedom really mean when it's determined by the place you're born? Can a culture be transformed when change threatens centuries of tradition? And most importantly, how can we, from outside, support these women without imposing our own Western lens? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if this story moved you as much as it moved me, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We amplify the voices the world tries to silence. Every video we share is more than just a story. It's a bridge to a reality that demands to be seen, heard, and understood. Thank you for staying with me this far. And remember, simply sharing this video could be the first small act that sparks change in someone's life. Now, picture this. You're standing there, draped in a bridal gown, surrounded by smiling relatives, music filling the air, camera flashes immortalizing the moment. But inside, your heart is shattering into a million pieces. Because you know that tonight, your life won't change because of love. It won't change because you chose it. It will change because you were forced into it. For many girls and women in Afghanistan, what others call a wedding day is not a celebration. It's the beginning of a sentence. Because long before they even approach the altar, they've already been warned, if you refuse, you won't be the only one who suffers. Your mother, your sisters, your entire family will pay the price. Imagine the weight of that threat. The emotional blackmail is so brutal, so suffocating, that resistance feels impossible. How do you say no when you know that the cost of your refusal will be violence against the people you love most? In that moment, many fall silent. Some let tears roll quietly down their cheeks. Others freeze, paralyzed, numb, disconnected from the nightmare unfolding around them. The ceremony continues. Guests clap. Blessings are spoken. Smiles are exchanged. And yet, the one person whose life is being decided is silenced. And then comes the wedding night. For many, this is the most terrifying moment of their entire existence. Alone, stripped of power, they are forced to share a bed with a man old enough to be their grandfather. A stranger who, under this system, now holds unquestioned rights over her body, her time, her very being. Some try to resist. But in a culture where the husband's authority is absolute, where marital violence isn't just tolerated but often expected, that resistance is swiftly crushed. Where can they run? There is no law to shield them. And if they dare to flee, they know the hunt will begin immediately. In the days that follow, Their life becomes a prison with invisible bars. The husband's family watches their every move. They ensure she doesn't escape, doesn't contact outsiders, doesn't even dream of another life. Freedom. That word no longer exists in her world. But what happens if, despite it all, she dares to risk everything? What if desperation drives her to search for a way out? Escaping a forced marriage in Afghanistan is a nearly impossible mission. Not just because the roads and borders are monitored. Not just because extended family, neighbors, and even local authorities form a web of informants. But because the entire system is designed to drag the rebellious daughter back into submission. And if she's caught, the consequences are chilling. For some, being captured is a death sentence disguised under the name of honor. Yes, murdered by their own fathers or brothers, who believe that spilling her blood is the only way to erase the shame she brought upon them by daring to disobey. For others, punishment comes in the form of lifelong confinement. Locked inside a dark room with no windows, forbidden to leave, monitored day and night. And in more formal cases, even the law turns against them, branding them criminals, imprisoning them for the so-called crime of illegal escape. Instead of rescuing them from suffering, the system locks them away as offenders for trying to escape their own personal hell. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Secret Journeys, your window into the hidden corners of the world and the untold stories that deserve to be heard. And yet, if a few manage to slip away, what future awaits them? Some find refuge in secret shelters, living every day under the shadow of fear, terrified of being discovered. Others, crushed by the weight of hopelessness, attempt the unthinkable. They choose death over captivity. Because in their eyes, death feels like the only door left open. And while they fight to survive in hiding, those who remain trapped begin another battle. Enduring each day beside a man they never chose, becoming mothers at ages so young they barely understand what it means to raise another human being. Their childhood is stolen. Their womanhood shaped by sacrifice. Their dreams buried under the weight of duty and survival. Now I ask you, what would you do if every door around you was locked? If every road out was guarded? If every choice you tried to make came with a threat to the people you love most? Let's reflect together. Let's talk about this in the comments. And if this story has moved you as deeply as it moved me, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Because here, we don't just share stories. We give a voice to those the world tries to silence. Many Afghan women feel a powerful, almost magnetic pull toward the unknown, toward everything that lies beyond the walls, the borders, the invisible cages surrounding their lives. And in that distant, unreachable world, the figure of the Latin man emerges like something out of a dream, or perhaps a myth. To them, he's not just a man, he's a symbol. He represents what's forbidden. He embodies a doorway to a life filled with choice, with passion, with freedom. A life they've only dared to imagine. But don't be fooled, this attraction isn't naive. They know all too well that even speaking to a foreign man could endanger them. In their culture, a woman cannot fall in love freely. She cannot simply decide to run away with an outsider. The price of defying her family could be devastating, even irreversible. Yet despite the risks, some women dare. They take unimaginable chances. They secretly learn foreign languages. They find ways to send hidden messages online. They seek out any small opportunity, a contact, a connection, a marriage proposal from abroad, that might serve as their one-way ticket to freedom. Others aren't so lucky. They carry their hopes only in their dreams, lying awake at night, whispering silent prayers that one day they too might love without fear, without chains, without the crushing weight of a tradition they never chose. Because here's the paradox. The more forbidden something is, the more seductive it becomes. In a country where a woman needs permission to speak to a man, where even a glance or a greeting could spark disaster, the image of the Latin man becomes electrifying. He represents everything they've been denied: adventure, passion, love without conditions, the possibility of writing their own story. So if you ever travel to Afghanistan and notice curious stares, shy smiles, lingering glances, don't dismiss them as simple admiration. For many, you're more than just a stranger. To them, you're a glimpse of possibility, a symbol of a different world, a fragile spark of hope. But if you thought arranged marriages with older men were the most shocking part of Afghan tradition, brace yourself. The reality runs even deeper. Imagine this: your family has no sons. And because of that, they decide to raise you, a daughter, as a boy. This isn't fiction. It's not some isolated story. It's a real, widespread practice known as bachapash. In Afghanistan, some families dress and raise a daughter as a son. Why? Because being a boy unlocks privileges: the freedom to leave the house unchaperoned, the right to study, to work, to move about without shame or scrutiny. For families with no male heirs, raising a daughter as a son is a way to avoid social stigma, to gain access to the rights and respect reserved only for males. But here's where the heartbreak strikes. When puberty arrives, the clock runs out. The family demands she returns to being a woman. After years of freedom, of walking the streets in pants, of feeling the breeze on her uncovered hair, suddenly, she must hide behind a burqa. She must give up her boyhood, her independence, her sense of self. The privileges she tasted are ripped away. And in their place, silence, confinement, submission. Imagine being forced to erase the identity you've spent your entire childhood building, simply because your biology doesn't fit the rules. And if you think that's the end of it, think again. There are even harsher practices buried within Afghan customs. In some regions, debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with women. There's a chilling tradition known as bad, where a daughter or sister is handed over as compensation to settle disputes between families. Can you even fathom it? Imagine, your brother commits a crime, and instead of facing punishment himself, the solution is to marry off you to the offended family. It doesn't matter if you're a child. It doesn't matter if you scream, if you beg. Your life is traded like currency. For the woman given away, it means her world as she knows it ends that very day. She's handed over like property, stripped of choice, forced into a household where abuse is not just possible, it's likely. Her body, her voice, her existence, all absorbed into a family that never wanted her, only demanded repayment. Now I want you to stop and think, what would you do if your entire future could be bargained away by someone else's mistake? If your life could be reduced to a transaction? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if this story shook you as much as it shook me, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Every time you share a video like this, you're helping reveal a truth the world so often tries to ignore. Here, we're not just telling stories. We're lifting the veil. We're illuminating the darkness. We're giving voice to the unheard. Thank you for staying until the end. And remember, sharing is resistance. Do you think change is possible in a system built on centuries of silence? Let's reflect together. And behind all of this lies one of the harshest, most painful faces of this reality: child marriage. Because we're not just talking about young women forced to marry older men. The most chilling part? Many of these wives haven't even reached adolescence. These are little girls, girls who should be playing with dolls, learning their ABCs, giggling with friends, being forced into the roles of wives, mothers, caretakers, long before they even understand what those words mean. Now I want you to pause. Think with me. How do we break this cycle? What role does education play? How much responsibility lies with the international community? And most importantly, how do we return to these women the basic right to dream, to choose, to live on their own terms? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if this story has shaken you as deeply as it has shaken me while telling it, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because every time you share a story like this, You're helping shine a light on lives that the world so often leaves in the dark. Here, we don't just tell stories, we make them visible. Thank you for staying with me this far. And remember, spreading awareness is an act of resistance. But did you know that in Afghanistan, it's entirely normal for a girl to be promised in marriage before she even turns 10? Yes, you heard that right. In many cases, while she's still playing in the dirt, braiding her doll's hair, barely learning to read, her future has already been sold. She's engaged to a man she's never seen, never spoken to, and what's even more unsettling, she won't lay eyes on her future husband until the very day of the wedding. Imagine that. Her life, her freedom, her destiny, all decided without her voice, without her choice. Behind this brutal practice lies a tangled web of forces: crushing poverty, unyielding tradition, deeply rooted religious beliefs. For many families struggling to survive, marrying off a daughter is more than a union. It's a form of survival. One less mouth to feed. One transaction that brings in money. A bride price that, even temporarily, relieves the suffocating burden of poverty. It's cruel. But through the lens of desperation, it feels necessary. And if you thought that was the worst of it, wait. In Afghanistan, covering your body and face isn't a personal choice, it's a mandatory command. The burqa isn't just a piece of clothing. It's a prison made of fabric. Since the Taliban's return to power, its use has once again become compulsory in every corner of the country. No woman is allowed to show her face in public. And if she does, the consequences can range from physical assaults to far more severe punishments. Can you imagine living every single day trapped inside a portable cage, stripped of identity, invisible to the world? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Secret Journeys to explore hidden stories and the world's most exotic corners without spending a penny. But the restrictions don't end there. Even something as simple as going to the market or seeing a doctor requires permission. A woman can't step outside her home alone. She must be accompanied by a male guardian, her husband, brother, or father. Without that figure by her side, she's forbidden from setting foot in public spaces. Can you imagine that kind of imprisonment? Living in a world where every step requires approval? And yet, even in the midst of so much darkness, a surprising and almost magical tradition still endures in Afghan culture: Nanawati. This ancient ritual might be one of the oldest codes of honor on Earth. Imagine this: you're in grave danger, being hunted, accused of a serious crime. In a desperate move, you show up at the door of your enemy, knock, and ask for refuge. And here's the incredible part: if the homeowner accepts, you're granted sanctuary. From that moment on, no one can harm you. It doesn't matter what you've done. It's as if a sacred pact has been sealed, a promise of inviolability that no one dares break. Isn't that extraordinary? But Afghanistan isn't only a land of honor codes and ancient hospitality. In its hidden corners, while the Taliban bans music, movies, even public celebrations, underground animal fights thrive. Rooster fights. Dog fights. They're not just entertainment, they're powerful symbols of pride, status, and gambling. In secret gatherings, men place enormous bets on their prized animals, watching every strike, every bite, with adrenaline pumping. Owning an undefeated rooster isn't just about money, it's a badge of honor, a living trophy. And though outlawed, these fights persist, defying the regime with every flutter of wings and clash of jaws. Yet not everything in Afghanistan is defined by suffering and repression. There exists a luminous celebration that breaks through the harshness of daily life: Shab-e-Yalda, the longest night of the year. This ancient festival, inherited from Persian culture, marks the winter solstice. On this night, families gather to recite poetry by Hafez, to share stories, to eat red fruits like pomegranates and watermelon, symbols of life, light, and renewal. For many women, it's one of the few evenings they can sit with loved ones without as many restrictions. A moment when poetry and tradition create an emotional refuge. Isn't it beautiful to imagine such an oasis of culture blooming amid so much oppression? And yet the big question still lingers in the air. Will these realities ever change? Is it possible to dismantle customs so deeply embedded they feel carved into stone? The truth is harsh. Despite international pressure, despite the tireless work of activists, despite global human rights campaigns, change moves slowly, painfully slowly. Because in Afghanistan, traditions aren't just customs. They're the scaffolding holding entire communities together, justified by religion, honor, and survival. Even so, a spark of hope burns in the hearts of the new generation. More and more Afghan youth, especially women, are fighting for a different future. A more just, more free, more humane Afghanistan. And while the road ahead is dangerous and steep, their courage is planting seeds for a better tomorrow. Tell me, did you ever imagine Afghanistan held such complex, contradictory traditions? Some haunting, some heartbreakingly beautiful, all reflecting a land steeped in millennia of stories. And what you've heard today, it's just the tip of the iceberg. That's why you can't miss what's coming next. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey as we uncover the hidden stories of Afghanistan and beyond. Because as long as there are voices waiting to be heard, we'll be here to amplify them. I'll see you in the next video.